Metal screamed against metal as something large crashed into the docking bay of Research Station Harmony 7. Sam Rivers dropped his datapad and ran toward the sound, boots echoing through empty corridors that had been silent for months. Mining asteroid where Sam worked alone had become his home after the main crew departed for bigger assignments on the core worlds. He preferred the solitude anyway. Just him and his xenobiology research in the quiet depths of space smoke, poured from the twisted remains of what looked like an escape pod. The hull was unlike anything in the galactic database, smooth and organic with patterns that seemed to shift when he looked at them directly. Sam grabbed a fire suppressor and rushed forwards. The smoke cleared. He heard something that made him stop in his tracks, a sound like wind chimes mixed with a kitten's cry, soft, musical, and utterly heartbreaking. It was coming from inside the wreckage. Sam carefully pried open a section of the hull that had buckled in the crash. Inside the small craft he found emergency life support systems still running and what appeared to be a tiny sleeping chamber. But it was empty except for scattered crystalline fragments that glowed with their own inner light. The crying sound came again, fainter now. Sam followed it around the side of the pod where he discovered something that made his breath catch in his throat. A creature no bigger than his palm, with scales that seemed to be carved from pure white crystal, and eyes the color of deep sapphires. It was a dragon. There was no other word for it. Tiny wings that sparkled like diamonds, 4 legs with delicate claws and a long tail that curled around its small body for warmth. But dragons were supposed to be mythical creatures from old Earth stories, not real aliens found in crashed escape pods. The little creature looked up at him with those impossibly blue eyes, and Sam felt something he had never experienced before. A wave of pure emotion washing over his mind. Fear, loneliness, desperate, hope. The dragon was somehow projecting its feelings directly into his thoughts. Sam knelt down slowly, making himself as non-threatening as possible. The dragon watched his every movement with intelligence that was clearly far beyond any animal Sam had ever studied. This was not some pet or wild creature. This was a child. "Hey there, little one," Sam whispered, though he doubted the creature understood his words. The emotional projection seemed to shift slightly, becoming less fearful and more curious. "Are you hurt?" The dragon made that wind chime sound again and took a tentative step toward Sam's outstretched hand. Its scales caught the light from the station's emergency systems and threw rainbow patterns across the docking bay walls. Sam had never seen anything so beautiful or so clearly alien. When the dragon was close enough, Sam could see that it was indeed very young. Its scales were soft and its movements had the unsteady quality of a newborn learning to walk. Somehow this tiny creature had survived alone in space long enough to find his station. Sam looked back at the escape pod and noticed something he had missed before. Scorch marks along the hull that looked like weapons fire. Whatever had happened to this dragon's people, it had been violent. The little creature might be the only survivor. The dragon approached Sam's hand and sniffed it cautiously. Then it did something remarkable. It placed one tiny claw on Sam's finger, and suddenly his mind was flooded with images, massive shapes moving through space. Creatures like this dragon, but enormous and magnificent. And then fire and darkness and desperate flight. Sam jerked his hand back in shock and the connection broke. The dragon stumbled backward, too, clearly as surprised as Sam was by what had just happened. They stared at each other for a long moment, both trying to process what they had experienced. "You can share memories," Sam said in wonder. The dragon tilted its head as if trying to understand his words. "You're telepathic, aren't you?" The station's computer system chimed with an incoming message alert. Sam ignored it. Right now nothing was more important than this moment with a creature that shouldn't exist. A dragon that had somehow found its way to him across the vast emptiness of space. Sam slowly reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out an emergency ration bar. He broke off a small piece and offered it to the dragon. The creature sniffed it carefully, then took a tiny bite. Its eyes widened, and it made a pleased trilling sound before finishing the entire piece. "Hungry, weren't you?" Sam smiled. The dragon looked up at him with what could only be described as gratitude. "Don't worry, I have plenty of food, and you're safe here." The dragon seemed to understand his tone, if not his words. It curled up next to Sam's knee, wings folded against its small body. Sam could feel waves of exhaustion coming from the creature now that its immediate fear was fading. Sam carefully scooped up the dragon, surprised by how light it was. The creature didn't resist, instead, curling up in his palms like a cat seeking warmth. Its scales were warm to the touch and seemed to pulse gently with their own inner light. As he carried the dragon toward his living quarters, Sam's mind raced with questions. Where had this creature come from? What had happened to its people? And most importantly, what was he going to do now that he had found it? The standard protocol for discovering unknown alien life was clear. Immediate containment and notification of Earth Command. Within hours, this station would be swarming with scientists and military personnel. The dragon would become a specimen to be studied and tested, but looking down at the tiny creature sleeping trustfully in his hands, Sam made a decision that would change everything. He walked past the communication console without sending any messages. Whatever happened next, this little dragon deserved better than to spend its life in a laboratory. Sam set up a small bed for his unexpected guest, using soft towels and a heating pad. The dragon settled in immediately, making that contented trilling sound. As it drifted off to sleep, Sam sat nearby and watched over it, outside the station windows. The asteroid belt stretched endlessly in all directions. Somewhere out there, other dragons might still be alive. And for the first time in months, Sam Rivers was no longer alone. The dragon slept peacefully, its crystalline scales catching and reflecting the starlight. And Sam began planning how to help this remarkable creature find its way home. Soft morning light from the station's artificial day cycle woke Sam from the best sleep he had enjoyed in weeks. The dragon was still curled up in its makeshift bed, but its sapphire eyes were open and watching him with curious intelligence. Sam had spent half the night reading everything the station's database contained about reptilian life forms and telepathic species. None of it matched what he was observing. This creature was completely unique as far as human knowledge was concerned. The dragon stretched like a cat when it saw Sam was awake, spreading its wings and arching its back in a way that was both graceful and endearing. Its crystalline scales caught the light and scattered tiny rainbows across the walls of Sam's quarters. "Good morning, little friend," Sam said softly. The dragon's head tilted toward him and he felt a gentle wave of contentment brush against his mind. The telepathic connection was still there. Weaker than yesterday, but definitely present. Sam prepared breakfast for both of them, his usual protein pack for himself and some fresh fruit he had been saving for a special occasion. The dragon's eyes grew wide when it saw the apple slices. Sam offered. The creature approached the food carefully and took a small bite. Immediately, its emotional projection shifted to something Sam could only describe as pure joy. Apparently, dragons had quite the sweet tooth, or at least this young one did. While the dragon ate, Sam observed its behavior with the trained eye of a xenobiologist. Its movements were precise and purposeful, never random or instinctive. When it finished eating, the dragon actually seemed to bow its head towards Sam in what looked like gratitude. "You're welcome," Sam replied, and was surprised when the dragon perked up at his words. It was learning to associate his sounds with meanings, even though it couldn't understand the language yet. Sam decided to conduct a simple intelligence test. He activated a holographic display showing basic mathematical sequences. 1 + 1 = 2. 2 + 2 = 4. The dragon watched intently, its head moving back and forth as it followed the patterns. After a few examples, Sam displayed 1 + 3 and left the answer blank. The dragon studied the projection for a moment, then did something remarkable. It used one tiny claw to trace the number 4 in the air where the answer should be. Sam stared in amazement. Not only had the dragon understood the mathematical concept, it had somehow intuited the human numbering system just from watching a few examples. This level of intelligence was unprecedented in any species humanity had encountered. Encouraged by this success, Sam tried more complex tests. Geometric patterns, color sequences, even basic logic puzzles. The dragon solved them all with increasing speed and confidence. It seemed to genuinely enjoy the mental challenges. More than once, Sam caught the dragon looking toward the viewport that showed the starfield outside. When it did, waves of sadness and longing would wash over Sam's mind. The creature was searching for something, or someone. Sam pulled up a star chart on the holographic display and pointed to their current location. The dragon studied it carefully, then began moving its claws in specific patterns. Sam realized it was trying to show him something about the stars. The dragon's movements became more agitated as it tried to communicate. Finally, it pressed both small claws against Sam's forehead, and suddenly his mind exploded with images. Vast creatures soaring through space, cities that floated among the clouds, and a sense of urgent searching. When the connection broke, Sam was left breathless. The dragon wasn't just lost. It was looking for its family, its people, and somehow it had chosen to trust him with that desperate need. Sam began modifying the station's sensor array to search for unusual energy signatures. It was tedious work, but the dragon watched everything he did with fascination. Occasionally it would make soft musical sounds that Sam began to recognize as expressions of approval. During lunch, the dragon demonstrated another surprising ability. When Sam accidentally knocked over a glass of water, the creature's eyes began to glow and the spilled liquid actually moved, flowing back into the glass as if time was running backward. Sam watched in wonder as the dragon completed this impossible feat, then collapsed in apparent exhaustion. Using whatever power it possessed clearly took a great deal of energy for such a young creature. That was incredible, Sam whispered. The dragon looked up at him with tired but pleased eyes. It had wanted to help, even at cost to itself. The gesture touched Sam deeply. As the day progressed, Sam noticed the dragon beginning to follow him around the station. It would perch on his shoulder while he worked or curl up nearby while he ate, never getting in the way, but always wanting to be close. The creature seemed particularly interested in the communication systems. It would watch intently whenever Sam received routine status reports from Earth Command. Sam began to wonder if the dragon understood that these devices could be used to contact others across vast distances. During the afternoon, Sam tried another experiment. He showed the dragon pictures of various alien species from the Galactic database. The creature looked at each image carefully but showed no recognition until Sam displayed a photo of the crystalline formations found on certain high-energy worlds. The dragon became very excited, projecting feelings of familiarity and home. Sam realized these crystal formations might be connected to the dragon species somehow. Perhaps they were native to such worlds, or used them for some purpose he didn't understand. As evening approached, Sam noticed the dragon becoming restless again. It kept looking toward the viewports and making soft, mournful sounds. The waves of loneliness coming from the creature were heartbreaking. Sam sat down next to the dragon and gently stroked its head. The scales were surprisingly soft and warm, and the dragon leaned into his touch with obvious pleasure. For a moment the sadness faded and was replaced by contentment. "I know you miss your family," Sam said quietly. "We'll find them, I promise." The dragon looked up at him with those impossibly blue eyes, and Sam felt a pulse of gratitude and trust that nearly brought tears to his eyes. This remarkable creature had faith in him, despite being lost and alone in an alien place. That night, the dragon chose to sleep curled up next to Sam rather than in its own bed. Sam didn't have the heart to move it. As he drifted off to sleep, he could feel the gentle rhythm of the dragon's breathing and the faint warmth of its crystalline scales. In the darkness of space outside, the stars continued their ancient dance, and somewhere among them, Sam hoped, other dragons were searching for their lost child just as desperately as it was searching for them. The bond between human and dragon was growing stronger with each passing hour, built on trust, kindness, and the simple recognition that neither of them needed to be alone. 3 days had passed since the dragon's arrival, and Sam could hardly remember what the station had felt like when it was empty. The tiny creature had transformed his sterile research facility into something that actually felt like home. The dragon had claimed the workbench in Sam's main laboratory as its favorite perch. It would sit there for hours, watching him run diagnostics on the sensor array with the focused attention of a graduate student. Occasionally, it would make soft, trilling sounds that Sam had learned meant approval Sam had started talking to the dragon constantly, explaining what he was doing as he worked. The creature seemed to enjoy the sound of his voice even though it couldn't understand most of the words. But Sam was beginning to suspect it understood more than he initially thought. This morning brought an unexpected breakthrough. Sam was calibrating a quantum resonance scanner when the dragon suddenly became agitated. Its scales brightening and its wings fluttering with excitement. It began making urgent chirping sounds and pointing one claw toward a specific section of the scanner's display. Sam looked where the dragon was pointing and saw what appeared to be a minor malfunction in the quantum matrix. Nothing the station's automated systems had detected yet, but potentially serious if left uncorrected. He made the necessary adjustments and the scanner immediately began running more smoothly. "How did you know that?" Sam asked in amazement. The dragon preened slightly, clearly pleased with itself. Somehow it had sensed the malfunction before any of the station's advanced instruments. This wasn't the first time something like this had happened. Yesterday the dragon had alerted Sam to a pressure leak in the atmospheric recycling system, and the day before it had detected a fluctuation in the power grid that could have caused a complete system shutdown. Sam began to realize the dragon's abilities extended far beyond simple telepathy. It seemed to have some kind of intuitive understanding of complex technological systems, as if it could sense the flow of energy and information through the station's networks. The trust between them was growing deeper each day. The dragon now rode on Sam's shoulder as he moved through the station, its tiny claws gripping his shirt for balance. It would nuzzle his cheek when it wanted attention and purr softly. When it was content, Sam had started thinking of the dragon as male, though he had no real evidence for this assumption. The name that came to mind was Frost, inspired by the creature's white crystalline scales and the cold emptiness of space where he had been found. Frost had begun displaying protective behavior that both warmed Sam's heart and amazed him with its intelligence. Whenever Sam worked with potentially dangerous equipment, Frost would position himself between Sam and the hazard, wings spread in a gesture that was clearly defensive. During lunch on the third day, Sam tried something new. He began drawing simple pictures while Frost watched: a circle for the sun, wavy lines for water, stick figures for people. Frost observed intently, then took the stylus in his claws and began drawing his own images. What Frost drew made Sam's breath catch: elegant flowing shapes that looked like dragons in flight, crystalline structures that towered into cloudy skies, and most remarkably, what appeared to be mathematical symbols that were far more complex than anything in human notation. "Your people are advanced, aren't they?" Sam whispered. Frost looked up at him, and for a moment Sam felt a wave of pride mixed with deep sadness. Pride in his species' achievements, sadness for all that had been lost. Sam decided to try more direct communication. He activated the station's linguistic analysis program and began speaking simple words while pointing to objects. Light, while indicating the room illumination. Water, while showing Frost his drinking bowl. Friend, while pointing to himself. Frost listened carefully to each word, then began making sounds that were clearly attempts to mimic human speech. His first word was a musical approximation of Sam that sent chills down the researcher's spine. The dragon was trying to say his name by evening. Frost had managed rough versions of several basic words: Sam, food, home, and most heartbreakingly, lost. Each word came with emotional projections that gave Sam deeper insight into what Frost was feeling. The word home came with images of soaring spires and floating cities, while lost brought waves of confusion and fear. But when Frost said Sam, the projection was one of warmth and safety. Sam had become this creature's anchor in an alien world that night. As they sat together looking out at the stars, Sam made a decision that went against every regulation in the xenobiology handbook. He was going to help Frost find his people no matter what it took. "I've been working on expanding the sensor range," Sam explained, though he wasn't sure how. Much Frost understood. "Tomorrow we should be able to scan much deeper into the asteroid field." Frost's response was immediate and intense. He pressed his small head against Sam's hand and projected feelings of gratitude so strong that Sam almost wept. This tiny creature trusted him completely as they prepared for sleep. Frost did something he had never done before. He began to sing. The sound was hauntingly beautiful, like wind chimes mixed with a lullaby. It filled the entire station with ethereal music that seemed to resonate in Sam's bones. The song told a story without words. Sam could feel it in the melody and the emotions that accompanied it. It was the story of a great journey, of leaving home to find safety, of hope and fear and the courage to trust strangers. When the song ended, Frost curled up in his usual spot next to Sam and fell asleep immediately. But Sam lay awake for a long time, staring at the ceiling and thinking about the responsibility he had taken on somewhere in the vast darkness outside. Frost's family might still be alive. They might be searching for their lost child just as desperately as the child was searching for them. And Sam was the only one who could help reunite them. The next morning would bring new challenges and discoveries. But tonight, a human scientist and a dragon hatchling slept peacefully together, bound by trust and friendship across the barriers of species and language, in the depths of space. Ancient patterns continued to unfold. But on Research Station Harmony 7, something new was beginning. A partnership that would soon change everything for both human and dragon alike. The bond between them had grown from curiosity to trust to something deeper. A connection that transcended words and touched the very essence of what it meant to care for another being. Tomorrow would test that bond in ways neither of them could imagine. But for now, they were simply friends watching over each other in the endless night. Dawn brought urgent alarms screaming through Research Station Harmony 7. Sam jolted awake to find Frost already alert, his crystalline scales pulsing with an inner light that Sam had never seen before. The modified sensor array was displaying readings that made Sam's heart race. Massive energy signatures were emerging from the shadow of the largest asteroid in the field, something huge beyond anything in the galactic databases. Frost leaped from his sleeping spot and began making sounds Sam had never heard before. Not the musical trills of contentment or the soft chirps of curiosity, but deep, resonant calls that seemed to vibrate through the station's hull. "What is it, Frost?" Sam asked as he rushed to the main console. The dragon's emotional projection was a mixture of desperate hope and overwhelming fear. Whatever was out there, Frost recognized it. The sensor display resolved into something that took Sam's breath away. A ship of impossible size and beauty, its hull carved from what appeared to be living crystal that shifted and flowed like liquid starlight. It was ancient beyond measure, older than human civilization. Frost became increasingly agitated. As the ship approached, his calls growing louder and more urgent. Sam realized the little dragon was trying to communicate with whoever was aboard that magnificent vessel. The station's communication system crackled to life with sounds that were clearly not human. Harmonious voices speaking in musical tones that reminded Sam of Frost's lullabies. The dragon ship was trying to make contact, but something was wrong. The energy readings from the massive craft were fluctuating wildly, showing signs of critical system failures. Power levels were dropping. Support was failing, and the ship's graceful movement was becoming erratic. Sam activated the universal translator. But the dragon language was too complex for the system to process. However, he didn't need translation to understand distress when he heard it. The ship was dying. Frost pressed his small claws against Sam's hand, and suddenly Sam's mind was flooded with images more vivid and detailed than anything the dragon had shared before. He saw the dragon homeworld in its final days as their sun began to collapse. The images showed a desperate evacuation, thousands of dragons loading onto great ships as their civilization crumbled around them, families torn apart in the chaos, children separated from parents in the rush to escape. Sam watched through Frost's inherited memories as the exodus began, dragon ships scattering across the galaxy in search of new homes. But everywhere they went, they found the same story. Other species who promised help, but delivered only laboratories and cages, one after another. Worlds that had seemed welcoming revealed their true intentions. The dragon's advanced technology and telepathic abilities made them valuable specimens rather than potential allies. Trust became a luxury they could no longer afford. The memory stream showed Frost's own ship, smaller than the others, carrying families with young children. An attack by unknown vessels, desperate battle in the void, escape pods launching in all directions as the ship fell apart. Sam felt Frost's terror as his pod tumbled through space, for days before finally being drawn into the asteroid field where Sam had found him. The little dragon had been completely alone, searching for any sign of his people. When the connection broke, Sam was left gasping and Frost was trembling with exhaustion. Sharing such detailed memories had taken everything the young dragon had. "Your people have been running for a long time," Sam said softly. Frost nodded weakly, his scales dim with fatigue. "And they've learned not to trust anyone." The massive dragon ship was now close enough for visual contact. Sam could see sections of its hull that were dark and lifeless, while other areas pulsed with fading energy. The vessel was clearly on its last reserves through the viewport. Sam watched as smaller craft detached from the main ship. They moved with the fluid grace he had come to associate with dragon technology, but even these scouts seemed damaged, and Warren Frost struggled to his feet and began calling again, his voice weak but desperate. He was trying to tell his people he was alive, trying to guide them to safety. But Sam could see they were too far away to hear such a small voice. The station's long-range scanners revealed the full scope of the tragedy. There were dozens of dragon ships scattered throughout this system, all showing signs of damage and power failure. These weren't just refugees. They were the last survivors of their entire species. Sam realized he was witnessing something unprecedented, the final chapter of an ancient civilization, playing out in the cold emptiness of space, and somehow impossibly he had become part of their story. The approaching scout ships began scanning the station, their sensors washing over the hull with patterns of energy that felt almost gentle. Frost responded by pressing himself against the viewport, his scales brightening with hope. Then Sam felt it, a presence touching his mind, vast and ancient and infinitely sad. One of the adult dragons was reaching out telepathically, searching for the source of the young voice they had detected. The contact was overwhelming. Sam experienced the weight of centuries, the grief of a dying race, and the desperate love of a people who had searched across the galaxy for their lost children. But underneath all that sorrow, Sam felt something else: amazement. The adult dragon was shocked to find a human who had cared for one of their young without trying to cage or study it. Images flowed between them. Sam's memories of finding Frost, caring for him, protecting him from those who would have turned him into a laboratory specimen. The dragon seemed unable to believe what it was seeing. Through the telepathic link, Sam sensed other minds joining the connection. The entire dragon fleet was witnessing his memories, seeing for themselves how a human had chosen kindness over curiosity, compassion over conquest. The emotional response was immediate and intense, waves of gratitude and disbelief washing over Sam's consciousness. In 5,000 years of galactic travel, they had never encountered a species willing to help without demanding something in return. Frost added his own voice to the telepathic chorus, sharing his memories of safety and friendship, of learning and laughter, of trust freely given and returned. The bond between human and dragon was something his people had never imagined possible. As the connection gradually faded, Sam was left with a profound understanding of what these magnificent beings had endured, and the terrible choice they now faced as their ancient ships finally reached the limits of their endurance. The dragon fleet was dying, and they had nowhere left to run. But somehow, in the vastness of space, they had found something they had long ago stopped believing in: a friend. Emergency protocols demanded immediate action. Sam stared at the communication console that could connect him directly to Earth Command, knowing that one transmission would bring the full might of human military and scientific forces to this remote system. The dragon fleet hung in space before him, their ancient ships beautiful beyond description but clearly failing. Power fluctuations were increasing, and Sam's sensors detected multiple life support failures across the scattered vessels. Frost watched him with those impossibly blue eyes, projecting emotions Sam was learning to read like an open book: trust, hope, and underneath it all, the terrible fear that this human might betray them just like all the others. Sam's hands hovered over the communication controls. Standard first contact protocols were clear and absolute. Any discovery of new alien life must be reported. immediately to Earth Command for proper evaluation and containment. The word containment echoed in Sam's mind as he looked at Frost, such a clinical term for what would happen to these magnificent beings. They would become subjects, specimens to be studied and tested until every secret of their ancient knowledge was extracted. Through the viewport, Sam watched the Dragon Scouts circling his station at a respectful distance. They were waiting to see what he would do, whether he would prove worthy of the trust their youngest member had placed in him. Sam thought about the bureaucrats and military officials who would descend on this system within hours of receiving his report. They would see strategic value in Dragon technology, potential weapons applications in their telepathic abilities. The Dragons would disappear into classified research facilities, their children raised in laboratories, their culture dissected and catalogued until nothing remained but data points in scientific databases. Frost made a soft sound and pressed his small body against Sam's arm. The Dragon was trying to comfort him, somehow sensing the weight of the decision Sam was struggling with. "You know what I have to choose, don't you?" Sam whispered. Frost projected understanding mixed with resignation. Even this young dragon had learned that hope was often followed by disappointment. Sam's fingers moved toward the communication console, then stopped. He looked at the star charts displayed on his secondary monitor, showing the vast unexplored regions beyond the frontier worlds. There were systems out there that human surveys had marked as uninhabitable, worlds with hostile environments that would require advanced technology to colonize. But dragons might see opportunities where humans saw only obstacles. Sam began typing commands, but not into the communication system. Instead, he accessed the station's stellar cartography database and began compiling coordinates for systems rich in the crystalline formations that Frost had recognized. His hands moved with growing certainty as he plotted course headings to worlds that offered resources the dragons might need. Planets with high-energy crystals, asteroid fields rich in rare metals, systems far from the shipping lanes where refugees could rebuild in peace. The Dragon Scouts must have detected his computer activity because they began moving closer to the station. Sam felt gentle touches against his consciousness as the adult dragons tried to understand what he was planning. Instead of answering their telepathic questions, Sam activated his external transmitters and began broadcasting the stellar coordinates on frequencies he hoped the dragon ships could receive. The response was immediate. The scout ships changed their formation, moving into patterns that suggested intense communication between the fleet vessels. They were analyzing the data Sam had provided through the station's sensors. Sam watched as the massive command ship's energy patterns shifted. Power was being redirected to navigation systems and long-range scanners as they verified the coordinates he had sent. Frost became increasingly excited, his scales brightening. As he sensed his people's growing hope, the dragon projected images of crystal cities rising on new worlds, of families reunited, of children playing safely under alien suns. But Sam wasn't finished. He accessed the station's emergency supplies and began preparing care packages with high-energy foods, medical supplies, and technical components that the failing dragon ships might need. Most importantly, he deleted every trace of the dragons from the station's databanks, sensor logs, communication records, even the timestamp showing when Frost's escape pod had arrived. As far as official records were concerned, nothing unusual had ever happened at Research Station Harmony 7. The deletion process took precious time, but Sam worked methodically to ensure no evidence remained. If Earth Command ever investigated this system, they would find only a routine mining survey station with nothing remarkable to report as he worked. Sam felt the adult dragons watching him through their telepathic senses. Their amazement was palpable as they realized what he was doing. A human was helping them disappear completely, asking nothing in return. When the data purge was complete, Sam activated the station's cargo bay and began loading supplies into automated delivery pods. If the dragons were going to make a journey to new worlds, they would need every resource. He could provide. The largest dragon ship moved closer, and Sam felt a massive presence touch his mind. Ancient, powerful, and infinitely grateful. The Dragon Elder was trying to understand why a human would sacrifice so much for strangers. Sam projected his own thoughts as clearly as he could. Images of Frost sleeping trustfully beside him, Memories of the dragons, laughter and songs, the simple recognition that intelligence and kindness deserved protection regardless of species. The telepathic response nearly overwhelmed him. Centuries of wisdom and sorrow flowing through the connection, followed by something he had never expected, hope. Real hope for the first time in generations. Through the mental link, Sam felt the Elder Dragon sharing the coordinates with the entire fleet. Ships throughout the system began powering. Up their faster-than-light drives preparing for the journey to Sanctuary. Frost climbed onto Sam's shoulder and nuzzled his cheek, projecting pure love and gratitude. The little dragon understood what Sam had done and why he had done it. The cargo pods launched successfully, their automated systems guiding them toward the dragon ships. Sam watched as graceful mechanical arms emerged from the alien vessels to collect the supplies he had provided. As the dragon fleet prepared to depart, Sam felt one final telepathic contact. Not from the Elder this time, but from hundreds of dragon minds touching his consciousness simultaneously. They were sharing something precious with him. The memory of this moment, preserved in the collective consciousness of their people. Sam Rivers would be remembered by the dragons as long as their species survived. The massive ships began to disappear one by one, folding space around themselves as they activated drives that humanity wouldn't develop for centuries. But before the largest vessel vanished, it released something small that drifted toward the station. Frost became very still as he recognized what was approaching. It was a crystalline pod containing something that glowed with inner fire, a gift from his people to the human who had shown them kindness. As the last dragon ship faded into hyperspace, Sam realized he was about to face the most difficult part of his decision, because Frost would have to choose whether to follow his people or stay with the human who had become his friend. Silence returned to Research Station Harmony 7 as the last echoes of Dragon Song faded from Sam's mind. The crystalline pod drifted slowly toward the docking bay, its contents pulsing with gentle light that reminded him of Frost's scales. Frost sat on Sam's shoulder, unusually quiet, his small body trembling with emotions too complex for Sam to fully understand. The dragon was facing an impossible choice between duty to his people and love for the human who had saved him. Sam guided the pod into the station's cargo bay using the remote manipulator arms. Through the transparent crystal walls, he could see something that took his breath away. A single dragon scale the size of his palm, but unlike any scale he had seen before. This scale contained swirling patterns of light that moved like living galaxies, information encoded in crystalline structures so complex that human science couldn't even begin to analyze them. It was clearly a repository of knowledge, a gift beyond measure. Frost made a soft sound and projected images that explained what Sam was seeing. The scale contained the accumulated wisdom of dragon civilization, everything they had learned in 50,000 years of exploring the galaxy, scientific discoveries that would advance human technology by millennia, star charts showing safe routes to distant worlds, even the secrets of sustainable faster-than-light travel that didn't tear holes in space-time. All of it was encoded in that single crystalline scale. "They're giving this to me," Sam whispered, in amazement. Frost projected confirmation mixed with something deeper. This wasn't just a gift of knowledge. It was a declaration of trust through their telepathic bond. Sam felt Frost sharing the significance of what had just happened. Never in dragon history had they shared their deepest secrets with another species. But Sam's kindness had earned something dragons had never given before. The scale represented more than technology. It was proof that cooperation between species was possible, that trust could exist across the vast differences that separated alien minds. But even as Sam marveled at the gift, he knew it came with a terrible price. Frost would have to leave to rejoin his people. The young dragon couldn't abandon his duty to his species. No matter how much he cared for his human friend, Frost climbed down from Sam's shoulder and walked slowly to the viewport that showed the empty space where the dragon fleet had been. His emotional projection was a mixture of gratitude and heartbreak. "You have to go, don't you?" Sam said softly. Frost turned to look at him with those sapphire eyes that had become so familiar, and Sam felt waves of love and regret washing over his mind. The dragon began to sing, but this song was different from his lullabies. It was a farewell song, beautiful and tragic, telling the story of a friendship that had bloomed across impossible differences. As the song continued, Sam realized Frost was sharing his memories of their time together. The fear and wonder of first contact, the joy of learning and communication, the simple pleasure of companionship in the vast loneliness of space. When the song ended, Frost did something Sam would remember for the rest of his life. The dragon carefully removed one of his own small scales and placed it in Sam's palm. It was warm to the touch and glowed with gentle light through their telepathic connection. Sam understood the meaning. Frost was giving him a piece of himself, a way for them to maintain their bond across the vastness of space. Whenever Sam held the scale, he would be able to sense Frost's presence. The dragon had one more gift to share. He pressed his small head against Sam's forehead and projected a single, perfect moment. The image of Sam as Frost saw him, not as an alien creature but as the truest friend the dragon had ever known. Tears ran down Sam's cheeks as he felt the depth of Frost's affection. In 5 short days, they had formed a bond that would last both their lifetimes. A new sound filled the station, the harmonic hum of dragon technology. Something was materializing in the docking bay, a small craft designed for a single passenger. Frost's rescue had arrived, sent by his people to bring their lost child home. The ship was beautiful beyond description, its crystalline hull singing with the same music that Frost made when he was happy. "Your ride is here," Sam said, trying to keep his voice steady. Frost looked at him one more time, projecting such intense love and gratitude that Sam almost couldn't bear it. The dragon walked slowly toward the airlock, but at the threshold he turned back and spoke one word in his musical voice. "Friend." The word carried with it all the emotion Frost couldn't express. Sam knelt down and gently stroked Frost's head one last time. "Goodbye, little friend. Be safe out there." Frost spread his wings, and for a moment his scales blazed with brilliant light. Then he was gone, disappearing into the small craft that immediately began moving away from the station. Sam watched through the viewport as the dragon ship activated its faster-than-light drive. Space folded around the vessel and it vanished, carrying Frost toward reunion with his people and whatever new world they would make their home. The station felt impossibly empty without Frost's presence. Sam looked down at the 2 crystalline scales in his hands, one large and filled with the knowledge of an ancient civilization, one small and warm with a young dragon's love. He walked to his workstation and carefully secured both scales in a protective case. The large scale would change humanity's future, opening pathways to the stars that would take centuries to explore. But the small scale was more precious than any technology. Over the following days, Sam composed his official reports with careful attention to detail. He described routine maintenance, standard survey operations, nothing that would draw unwanted attention to this remote system. The dragon scale containing their accumulated knowledge remained hidden in Sam's personal effects. He would wait until the time was right to reveal its secrets, when humanity was mature enough to use such gifts responsibly. Sometimes, late at night, Sam would hold Frost's small scale and feel an echo of warmth across the vastness of space. His dragon friend was alive and well, probably helping his people build their new civilization. Word began to spread through the galaxy's communication networks. Rumors of humans who could be trusted. Stories of a species that chose kindness over conquest. The dragons were sharing their experience with other refugee populations. Sam never learned the full impact of his choice, but somewhere in the depths of space, desperate beings fleeing, dying worlds heard the story of the human who helped without asking for reward. The tale became legend among the scattered survivors of a dozen fallen civilizations. When they needed sanctuary, when they faced impossible choices, they remembered the name Sam Rivers and dared to hope. Research Station Harmony 7 returned to its quiet routine, but Sam was no longer alone. He carried with him the knowledge that friendship could bridge any gap, that trust could exist between the most unlikely companions. In the years that followed, Sam would become humanity's first ambassador to the stars, not through conquest or diplomacy, but through the simple act of showing kindness to a frightened, child who happened to be a dragon. The scales remained his most treasured possessions, one representing the future of human expansion into the galaxy, the other representing something far more valuable, proof that in a universe full of wonders the greatest magic was still the bond between friends. And sometimes when the station was quiet and the stars seemed especially bright, Sam could swear he heard the distant echo of dragon song, carrying across the light years the message that some friendships transcend space and time itself.